Well, greetings everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world, and welcome to today's Mesa webinar featuring Cognizant. We're talking about agility done remote, basically software product engineering in a virtual world. We all understand and know what we've been through in terms of the impact of COVID and the pandemic around the world, but having this distributed workforce, building software is an incredibly difficult challenge. And we're here today to talk about that. So I'm Mesa President, I'm Guy Finley. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I've also got Andres Angelani, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Cognizant Softvision. Hey Andres, how are you?
Hey Guy, how are you? How are you guys?
Very, very good. We're going to switch over and get your presentation set up. But while Andres is doing that, a little bit of housekeeping for everybody. So these webinars are always recorded and available online afterwards, either at Mesa on our website or obviously through Cognizant as well. Also, if you have any questions, please, in the moment, while you're thinking about it, pop over to the Q&A section and be sure to ask questions in there. We'll do a little bit probably during, but also we'll have a 15-minute Q&A wrap up at the end. And of course, if you have any questions or tech support or need anything, feel free to use the chat. The Mesa production team is here to help everybody through this. So Andres, we've got a great webinar in store for everybody. We've got an hour of action-packed activity and some real mind-blowing stats. Let's start by setting up the market a little bit. We've got a slide here to really talk about what's going on in OTT and over the top, and really how this business is really transformed. Not overnight, right? As we can see from this slide, right? Our earliest entrance started in 2014, even pre-Netflix in terms of their streaming opportunity. But let's talk through a couple of these things and set up the discussion ahead.
Yeah, so what we're seeing is a tremendous acceleration over the last few years, right? Investment. Netflix always was pioneer, but now a lot of wholesale models that media companies have are really transforming into more consumer grade and just basically, just touching and talking to that individual instead of just talking to a bigger audience. So that's represented tremendous change, which is, everybody's like in the industry says, well, content is king. That's true, but experience is queen, right? So we need to think about these two things. And when we talk about experience, we have to, think about what's the quality of the delivery, but also what's that relationship like? What's the platform that is going to provide the best experience to that individual consumer, how that platform understands the individual consumer one-on-one, not one-to-many. So we're going to that, one-on-one relationship between that brand and the consumer. And that obviously requires a lot of more data manipulation and understanding and analytics, but also it requires products that can leverage that data and provide, serve that experience to that consumer. So that's what makes this interesting, right?
Of course, and look, these are things that in 2014 we really didn't talk about, right? Data journey, customer experience, right? These are things that are relatively new, especially for the players that are just entering the market now. But when you talk about software development and understanding those problems and having the teams and the agility basically to react, that's something also that's very new. For years, it was always through third parties, whether it was a retailer or a movie theater, whatever it ends up being. The idea is we have so much more pertinent, usable, actionable information that happens in the now, and I think that's another huge part of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and also it requires the media company becomes a technology company, right? And that's easier said than done. And that's where agility comes into play. So that's what we were going to focus on today. Is how do we leverage what is the culture elements that make a company really make that pivot to becoming a technology company.
Yep, and I think also what the numbers demonstrate is the enormity and the size of this market. I think what we've also seen in the past few months is how important it is to have this channel. If this pandemic had happened 5 years ago, we wouldn't have had the options. The consumers wouldn't have had the options to enjoy that at-home experience when obviously the in-person experience has changed.
So what we know now for sure is that demand is there. So that's what we do. We don't travel anymore. We watch this stuff all the time. So the demand is there. Now, the winner is going to be the one that really intersects that content, premium content with that experience, right?
Yeah, agreed. And looking at those 2020 to 2030 numbers of 330 billion, I think that's being conservative, honestly, because we don't really know what we're going to unlock 2025 and beyond. So
yeah, true. I think it's very difficult to measure the market as is today. I think that there's a lot more revolution to happen.
Well, I'm gonna get out of here and let you do your presentation. I know you're gonna set it up also and telling about who you are and what you guys have done, because I think that's the other important piece that everybody knows is just how experienced you are in this market and what you're bringing to the table. So, but I'm gonna sign off and let you do it. We'll come back and I'll do a little bit of the Q&A with you when you get through the presentation. But
yeah, so what we're going to cover today is a little bit, I'm just going to be a little bit of a solo, just setting the scene for about like 15-20 minutes, and then we're going to move into a real case scenario that Marian, a member of our team, is gonna explain. So I'll start by talking about why are we here. So basically, we've been working with lots of companies for many years. The company is about 20 years old. My company is called Cognizant Softvision. I'm the CEO. What we do is really software product engineering, but we create IP for our partners. And we have been involved in building some of the internet classics, as you see there, like Mozilla, Firefox, and Groupon. 200 million downloads, top rated in the Apple Store as a mobile product. We also built online business with traditional companies like Estée Lauder, as you see there. We stood up their first online store, and now that is growing a very, very fast pace. And they kept up, right, with the changes in time. We're also working in projects. We're launching digital banks. So what's interesting about this, a lot of people do software for engineering, is that we've been doing this from the US and other geographies. So truly innovating, but working in a highly distributed team that has been sort of distinctive. Now the sort of the hybrid nature of the work sort of forced us to look at what makes these product engineering teams successful. And for over a decade, I would say, we developed a sort of a culture around that. So what I'm going to do today, I'm not going to get technical on what Agile is or Agile is not. That we're going to be a little bit beyond that. I'm going to tell you some of the key aspects of what that culture is that we built, and it just hopefully you will take it in and think about how that is impacting where you work, right, your place of work. So people are mentioning sort of this concept of virtual Agile. So it sounds like almost like an oxymoron, because Agile really stemmed from the innovative companies where teams would co-locate, all work together towards the same goal, and remove all blockers. So there seems to be some dissonance when you think about innovating in a new normal, especially when the markets push us to accelerate. So we don't really have a choice. We have to make it work. So that's what we say sort of virtual Agile, right? It's virtual working from really literally anywhere in the globe. So let me start. This is from a Gallup poll, and this is 2017. And if you think about, what would be the most the biggest issue here when people work completely from home, and again, this is pre-COVID, right? But it just tells the story. And if you think about it, it's number 2, actually. It's engagement in their work. Other things we can work out, but if people are not really engaged, there's no motivation in them. So how do we solve for that? And so the big question is, really, how do we create that great consumer product, that great experience that achieves the expected outcomes for our own customers? That's the one that's going to keep retention. That's the one that's going to make sure that when we are showcasing any content, it's going to be perceived in the right way, and it's going to go to the right eyeballs, right? What does that product, how do we make talent and process work so that the outcome is consistently high quality? So I will develop a potential solution. I'm not going to say that this is the solution, but at least these are some of the elements that make this sustainable and successful. And we call this virtual pods. So these are teams that actually build software every day. And even, we're not going to get into the technical weeds here. There are some really cool things I hope you take away about the teams and the model. So we're going to talk about who they are, what they're made of. And I need you first, before I go into this, how these teams work, I will get you acquainted to something that we call communities. That's what sources these teams. That's where the people are coming from, right? So communities in our world are sort of the heart of our global teams. We have, just to give you an idea, about 3,000 people designers, engineers, product managers. They're spending just about every programming language and focus. And the fact of the matter is, for us, a team in the thousands doesn't mean that the individual behind the work feels anonymous. And that's the very important thing, right? That translates into overall quality. We want our people to not just feel like, but to know that they're part of something special, and that at the individual level, they're professionals, thought leaders, contributors who become the subject matter experts our client trusts most for what they actually do, right? So Agile, lean software engineering, is all about removing silos and empowering the people to really own their role. So, it's a shift fast, fail fast, kind of keep building mentality. And you can't really do that without the individuals being trusted for their true expertise. So that's what communities do. So I want to present communities. We always talk about that individual journey within a group. And by connecting these people at the macro level across the geographies, we help them grow to really be amazing individual team members. But how do we do this? So communities are where a talent connects with similarly skilled peers to grow together. Think about a school within a university. Well, where budding biochemists continually study, share, and grow alongside one another, for example, or a professional club, social club, where screenwriters connect once a week to talk about their favorite new ideas while they share a drink. Our people are continually engaging with peers and growing. So within communities span every common need for a client. For example, we have iOS communities for mobile development, Android and DevOps, and user interface and user experience and QA and product management, enterprise web, cloud, and more. Those are all different communities. They live independently. They have their own playbook, social playbook, training playbook, and at the same time, they connect to build products. So they create these cross-functional virtual pods. And they have regular community-wide conferences to socialize and talk about professional growth. They share insights aligned to their community with our public website and internal platforms. They have global channels to ask questions, co-problem solve, and maintain their network. So sort of beyond that, why does this growth and engagement matter so much? We've already quickly mentioned Agile, but here's the thing with Agile development. It sort of creates that velocity, that speed to better products. Imagine that when you launch a product, that's when the whole party starts, really. I mean, that's when the cycle begins. It requires a well-connected team with pretty solid domain ownership built in. Individual contributors are often the single source of truth in Agile teams, so skill sets are critical. So our community managers, so the leadership on top of those communities who oversee this talent, keep track of how each individual is performing across micro-level specialty-specific skill sets and performance. And they keep team members motivated, tracking towards career goals, and inevitably making sure that they're well-developed subject matter experts in their space, so that we make sure that talent rises all the time, and that is transitive to the product that we're building. We call this outcome of communities, we call it mastery, and it's something that it's the core of what we do. So as individuals continue their training, they interact with peers and achieve real project results, they evolve. And that's what we call mastery, is the communities teach themselves to teach. So they carry themselves. They don't need to be reskilled. They don't need somebody else that's not coming from the outside, telling what to do, how to leverage the next technology and frameworks. They just grow their own because they're empowered to do so with very strong leadership at the top. It's a really simple organizational construct, but it depends on that influence and leadership. And this is the genesis, sort of, the fountainhead is what we call pods. I'm sure you know about fantasy sports, right, and esports, but in fantasy sports, fans can build a team of the best players in the league and compete with one another based on how their fantasy team performs. Pods are filled in a way, sort of like a fantasy team. So remember again the communities I just talked about. When a new software product is scoped out, right, a new idea comes up, our delivery leadership, alongside with the main stakeholders, and that's in many cases it's our client, exactly engage who we need from communities to achieve the desired outcomes. So a pod is constructed. It usually looks like something like this. The pods required for the project are sort of planned, and we have multiple skills that are part. They're engineering skills and design skills and product management skills, and that's what normally is difficult to do in a company that's not used to working in this sort of product engineering in this digital, pure play way. This is very difficult to achieve, but this is something that you do because you have these communities. And the right contributors from our global communities, they're plugged in for each role. As you see, it's the best possible team for the project, right? So handpicked. And it's easy to do, it's very fast to do when the communities are established. I should note, by the way, that pods aren't always 100% just our Cognizant teams. We also allow it for clients to map into pods and build an ecosystem of pods that not perform but also improve as they're learning about our customers' experience, the technology, the future of the space. So by creating a truly cross-functional pod, covering product design, engineering, the talent, plus including the team from the client within the pod, we effectively transform the culture and delivery approach of those client organizations. It's by osmosis almost, right? So that's how kind of DNA kind of mixes up a team that's very used to producing this at a high speed, connected to the domain expert, make this one team. And we call this, and I wrote a book about this, which you will have the chance to download online after the session. It's free, it's complimentary for this. It's called Transforming While Performing, right? We really don't believe in thinking about transformation. We believe that transformation is done while we're doing it, because we need to learn as we transform, as we perform, right? And we need to learn from that and what we need to improve. Always keeping our purpose and our goal forward. So again, transforming while performing. And what we always do is we create that transformational partnership with our clients and help them along the way. So we make all of the necessary considerations in this process. For example, is it necessary that pod team members be located in specific locations? What about when these locations are people's homes, right? So in this new normal, which isn't not forever's normal, but neither is yesterday, we'll be going back to offices. But in our view, we think about this, we are almost sure this is going to happen. Optionality of work location is going to rule the world. Right, so people will work part-time in the office or part-time out of the office. And when this is established, because again, it's many months of us working from home right now, companies can just adjust to this expectation from talent that they once they can't do it, frankly, will have trouble, really, because we believe that this is actually going to be the new normal, and we are embracing that. So this is where the virtual pod comes into view, right? A team that's prepared, supported by communities. So in this new world where everybody's working from their house, how do we make these cross-functional teams, these pods, which are the center of our software delivery model, work? What about burnout working from the same space, at the same space? Will engagement keep up? Is the team communicating well internally and with the client? Are people thriving individually and within their community? All these things, when you really don't see people, are coming up. With all of those questions in mind, the virtual pod is for us at least, is proving to be one of the answers. And our teams have always had to be flexible in location. That required us to deploy plans and protocols and model that work well from literally sort of anywhere. That's why when it's part of the communities, is what builds this full sort of virtual culture. Think about projects like Mozilla or the open source projects. Somehow it works, right? Because it works because these people are highly motivated to learn and experiment. In essence, it's because they are engaged, it works. If they're not engaged, it will not. It will seem that there's high probability, but it won't render the highest quality possible. And it will definitely not innovate, right? So virtual pods are a standard layer to our pod model. And I'm just going to talk about some of the principles. I'm not going to just recite the whole model here, but there are 4 core elements of software delivery excellence that we really need to take into account, and we have obviously taken into account when we're moving into this new normal. So let's dive into this. So I think it probably makes sense to start with engagement. And by the way, this is where I'll spend sort of most of the time. Remember that Gallup poll, that says, hey, the biggest issue normally is engagement. For remote teams specifically, it's really tough. In a similar vein, when people are remote, in general, leaders in general terms, the leaders are less involved in their team's career path, right? So some of the surveys says they're about 35% less likely to get meaningful feedback from peers when they're remote, and 30% less likely to get career growth input from managers, because some of these things need a setting and a kind of a natural setting to occur, and it's very artificial to host these when we are remote. So they just don't happen, right? But they must happen. And that was in 2017. So imagine now. How do you think these numbers look? So this is we believe that it has accelerated. We don't have numbers, but it has accelerated. It's worse, really. How do we make sure people are maximizing their time and tracking towards project progress alongside personal growth with all these distractions that home brings? So answering this sort of required that we at least rethink how we are using every single team. And in some cases, as you see at the top, we've created our own set of tools for a fully remote workforce to keep teams truly innovating. And these are tools and processes really all together. And our primary most high impact engagement tool is a platform that we call Game of Pods. And you guys are in entertainment, so I hope you're interested about this. It's a game. Game of Pods is something that really put a lot of work into, and we've been developing for a while, which now is great. Through COVID, it's helping a lot. The genesis of this platform is simply the culture of Cognizant Softvision, really. What was initially good culture of sharing kudos sort of became a system built on Facebook Workplace for recognizing one another. And then we wrapped this into KPIs that we measure from the teams. And we developed a methodology around rewards and stuff. And then we did what we do best, really, which is we built the software around it. So for us, Game of Pods is actually a software product that represents and sort of codifies the way that we work. And to really do it justice to this, I would dedicate the rest of this time in a demo, but we'll save that for another day. In summary, it's a platform to track agile KPIs, so basically outcomes from the teams with game mechanics and social dynamics that are built into this. Within the platform, goals get established, good performance is tracked and rewarded with hundreds of badges and trophies. Individual performance is socialized across the company. Peers recognize one another and celebrate good work. And social motivation keeps teams engaged. So within this Game of Pods, we built 2 worlds, like in any game, right? And you level up in those 2 worlds. The first in our delivery world, we call that the pod world, that's where the projects happen. Is where the client dedicated pod is tracked as a group with goals focused on the product. These are practical objectives in place, and they're for achieving key product outcomes, for communicating with the client team members, for speed and delivery timing, accuracy. In the delivery world, Game of Pods makes sure that the pod is a unit, as a unit is performing at its best and is tracking towards both practical and more abstract performance objective in a continuous improvement path that we call the maturity path. But the delivery world is also a little bit more than this. So good individual performance within the delivery world always maps back to the person. Again, it maps out to the member of that pod. So good work is rewarded and showcased also at a personal level. And this is critical. So those who contribute, collaborate, and show results stand out. And it creates sort of a culture of meritocracy, a performance culture. So our clients, our whole team recognize these individuals. The second world is the talent world. In the Game of Pods talent world, the individuals exist outside of their pod, obviously, as member of communities, as I explained before. So goals and badges are based on their career growth, community contribution, again, they're part of communities, peer-to-peer collaboration, and beyond. This is where gamification really takes the lead, because it socially motivates individuals globally to contribute and personally grow. Is that what's in it for me in this whole story, and creates the tension between what's the outcome delivered to the business in terms of how that product performs and how fast we are and how predictable our quality is, how autonomous the team is, but also it translates to how am I growing as an individual? What are the new opportunities that I can unlock as a function of how I'm doing in my work, and the whole system is achieving results. And Game of Pods sort of just around is the engagement engine that supports agile product engineering teams. It's a support system. Don't get me wrong. This is not the middle. This is a support system, but it helps us, especially when people are not looking at each other. So it's how we approach delivery, right? So we now obviously deploying Game of Pods across our virtual teams, and that is helping us with engagement. The next major element of virtual pods is how we approach community in this context of people, where people either are working from wherever they want, they have the optionality, or in the office, but quote unquote anywhere, sort of the new normal, right? So we've spent a lot of time in communities for many years, and now how community is really helping in this engagement as well. As you've seen, communities are not only the foundation for pods, they're the connective thread for creating that culture and engaging team members in something beyond the day-to-day project work. And that's critical for sustainable project health, for delivery, for retention. There's a correlation between how many people you can keep to the results of your product over a long time and the experience that product delivers, right? So it's very important to keep the talent in. So healthy office culture where people interact face-to-face is really hard to recreate, but the communities really enable that culture. So great culture is the key to adoption and sustainability of virtual environments. Companies that do this right will thrive really in the coming decade. We're using simple but well-architected tools like Workplace to keep our teams thriving on a personal level. With hosted workshops, they have challenges. Internal communities build on interest, like football fans. The discussion will be fantasy football. Dedicated teams keeping workplace thriving. Also, it's just one piece of the community puzzle. Another part of the community playbook is training, ongoing and constant, and an R&D agenda within the community that keeps these communities exploring technology, design patterns, creating points of view, which result in talent individuals that are at or ahead of the market because they are constantly creating thought leadership. Again, the community also in a virtual environment teaches itself to teach and supports every team that's working on projects. And we'll show more about how community supports the pod in the real world when we show off actual project work shortly. Mary is going to explain. Obviously, the other aspect that needs to support this is how our communication function works. We can't skip this really. It's kind of funny because alongside security, which I'll touch on in a moment, communication is probably the most attention-getting part of work from home right now. And that's not surprising. The first major issue most managers had to confront when everybody started working remote, right? Most companies had absolutely no plan for this, especially the ones that embraced Agile as a co-located methodology. They had no idea what to do, and we're really helping them. So of course, with virtual pods, we approach communication in a more thorough way than just simply standards or Zoom or GoToMeeting or Microsoft Teams. For our engineers and of course for projects, we needed to ensure that some fundamental elements of Agile teamwork are ensured with communication standards that go beyond chat and just calls, right? Just much more beyond that. So how do we handle things like pair programming, where engineers traditionally sit side by side and code? How do we standardize availability of open door policy when calendars look crazy and scheduling is suddenly kind of this huge blocker because all of a sudden everybody has the whole day taken by calls. So in virtual pods, we're implementing communication standards that open that door, keep our client stakeholders very informed, and inevitably protect the team time. And it comes down to kind of figuring out what the daily schedule likes, right? One important step is setting firm communication agreements with client teams up front to keep information flowing. Also ensuring incremental reporting of each project milestone as they are reached, and cross-team visibility into the project is truly a big deal. We also have calendar protocols, a daily schedule that push back on unnecessary meetings or vague agendas. Again, good communication plans are as much about enabling communication as they're about keeping that communication efficient, right? So we are no bad meetings is what I'm trying to say. Inevitably, our communications standards are pretty fluid. They're project dependent, but we always set these up front, and our virtual pods own them day by day. We'll show you more in the case study. And obviously, right, the last element I'm going to touch upon before we kick off is the data life. Before we kick off the data and the life kind of real experience is security, and it's something that we have to take extremely seriously, especially because we're creating IP, and in our case we hadn't significant breach because there's a combination of technology and culture really that make security really whole. But I'll tell you about a few of these. We have a global security lead who oversees all virtual pod security protocols. And again, this is pretty serious. So I just recently saw, for example, a 100-page document was floated around with the newest update covering kind of device usage, virtual desktops, credentialing, training compliance, and beyond. And it needs to be as serious as that, but also needs to be supported by a culture that wants to keep this whole, right? Especially when people working from different very heterogeneous environments. So my point is that security alongside communication, community, and engagement forms our virtual pods delivery model. So let's get to action. Let's take a look at this in action. I'm going to hand it off to Marian, and this is a media space large client. We can't share the name. I'm sure you understand why, because there's confidentiality here. But now Marian Bordet, I'm going to stop sharing. He is going to describe how this works in real life before we go into the Q&A. Marian?
Hey guys, hey everybody. Can you see my screen?
We can, Marian.
Okay, perfect. So let's go a little bit deeper into this. This is our pod. Yeah. So my name is Marian Bordet. I'm a delivery manager in Cognizant Softvision. Today we're going to talk about some aspects of our story going from full office to full remote. I'm having here today with me Andres Angelani, the project manager of this pod. We have Alexandru Gerghina, who is the Android tech lead, and we also have Alexandru Ene, who is the iOS developer. As you've seen so far, our pod has a mixture of different communities. So we have Android, we have iOS, we have DevOps, we have QA, and we have PM. Good. So why did I choose, or why did we choose this pod for this example? One item would be that what we're doing here is building, streaming mobile applications for a large media entertainment company, and we're working with people from US, UK, and Eastern Europe. Another aspect for which we chose this pod is in Softvision, in Cognizant Softvision, we have different pods that have a part of its people working remotely. I don't know, maybe it's something like you have some people working in different studios in the same country, or you have people working in different continents. In our case, Badger Pod was working fully in the same office, in the same studio, right? And for them, you may think maybe it's a bit harder to do this transition. So going back to March, right? So everything was a little bit crazy there. We heard those news about COVID. We didn't know exactly what happened. And I think it was like Thursday or Friday, we get a notice, guys, we need to move remote. We need to be able to keep everyone safe. Okay, I think it's like more in 2 days, tops, all the team was working from home. And while working from home, yeah, it was pretty fast. We started figuring and finding different challenges here. So I think the easiest to spot are, hey, some people have small children, some people have small apartments. It's hard to find privacy in this case, yeah? So what we try to do, we try to come to these people to help them, to show them that they are not alone in this. Like they have a full community support there. And I don't see like a specific community like whole Cognizant Softvision community. And what we did here, I think one of the first things that we did was to create support groups. We used our internal communication tool to create support groups where everyone can ask different things about, hey, I have this issue, can someone help me? We have a guy, Cosmin, in our team had some issue with his router, right? He wasn't able to connect to the VPN. Some other guy, we don't know him, he jumped in and helped him. And that was helpful for Cosmin and also for other people there. Another important part of this community bond that we have here is like we had people that were working fully remote before COVID, yeah? And some of these people wanted to help and they wrote some blog posts. Some of them did some podcast, you know, and all tried to share tips and tricks on how to do this, yeah. And we got recommendation from, hey, what desktop to buy, to how to set up my chair, how to adjust the lighting, even to tips more complex like, hey, how do I separate my work life, my work time versus family time on this, you know. So all of this helped a lot, right? I just want to let now Adrian give you a glimpse from delivery point of view how a day in the life of our pod looks like. Adi?
Hello everyone, I am Adrian. I am project manager and Scrum Master for this pod, and I'm going to tell you in a very short time how our typical workday is unfolding. So we are starting work at about 9 a.m. Some people are starting earlier, some people are starting a bit later, but at about 9 a.m. we have set aside some time for a virtual coffee to kick off the day. Then we have a couple of hours to actually do the work, and then at 11 a.m. we're having an internal Scrum meeting. This is not something that we have with our customer, but this is the engine of the day where we set up the goals for that work day, and we decide what each of us is going to do. After this is done, if there are some very difficult technical issues, we have some Scrum parking lot, and people who are involved there are going to spend a little more time talking about it. And after that, we're going to have another few hours for actual work. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have a short check-in on the most important part of the day to see that we are on track. Then at 3:30 in the afternoon, we have this daily Scrum with the client. It's a good time where we get feedback. We have we can clarify questions, and we have time maybe to pivot or to understand that we're going forward. And then we still have a few hours until the day is over to do more actual work. And then in the evening, we have some time set aside for team building and fun time, but I will not go more into details here. I will let my colleague Alex talk about this. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alex. I'm an iOS developer. Moving from office to home was was a big challenge for me at least. So our team started doing some things in order to prevent the engagement in work and so on. So we replaced the regular coffee in the office with an online one. We started some after work days, like gaming day, where we play as a team or against each other. We have our beer Friday after schedule, of course, where we discuss our outside of work passions. Like I'm passionate about motorcycles, so I'm having a vlog where I share tips and tricks. Marian is passionate about investments and so on, so he shares with us some tips and tricks in that in this domain. Some are passionate about doing do-it-yourself stuff, so one of our colleagues started replacing all the electronics in his house with smart ones. Also, we share books. For me, at least, I'm a technical person, so the reviews that my colleagues send me regarding books about emotional intelligence or financial educations and so on help me a lot to avoid burnout because of too many technical things. That's about for the fun facts that we have. We have far more, like gardening and so on, but I'm going to leave Marian discuss about them.
Yeah. So going a little bit back here, we have like a short picture of our desktop at home. You see here on the right side, near the second big screen, you can see my children's drawing cards, right? So these are part of the things that we share between us, right? In this new way of working. And another fun fact about the team is like, maybe you have noticed we have like 2 Adrians, we have 2 Cosmins, and we have 4 Alexes. We try to make everything harder to do and complicated here. Good. So while being in work from home or remotely, we started discovering new things about us, right? So one of the things that I discovered here, like I was watching one of our video montage for Coldplay Viva La Vida, I noticed that Andres is a very good piano player, right? And this adds me to this part, like leadership involvement is very critical for the fun part or for the work-related stuff. It's very important to be there. And we have all levels of leadership pitching in, helping. And we have like Adrian, who from his position as PM, he tried a lot and managed to do a very good communication between the people as they left the office. We have him, he also worked setting up a pace, so the people can have a speed to which they run the day-to-day job. He also tried to keep up the morale high. Here, what we did is, so Andres mentioned a bit of Game of Pods. We have an application Game of Pods, and besides a lot of things, one other item that is very useful for us is that you can do like a virtual shout out for the people. So a time when the customer has given us a praise, we can share that with everyone in Softvision, like. So it's very important for the people, this kind of moments. From my part, as a delivery manager, what I try to do is like, I try to have weekly meetings with all the teams that I'm working with, right? I try to assess their emotional state, their morale, and see if there are any issues that we can help push faster there. There were issues like on internal procedure changes. We need to realign on that. There were issues, I don't know, we have people, so we're working on mobile development. Some people have only one device to test. In office, it's easy to change a device between them. Now we had to find a new way to do this in a safe manner. We had discussion about the COVID situation. We try to make everyone feel at ease with this. We share news about the company. And also, as a delivery, I need to make sure that from delivery point of view, everything works fine. And we have the KPIs that we're following to make sure that happens. I can say that during this period of work from home, we had 12 releases. And from these 12 releases, 4 of them were for an application that we had to release it on 4 platforms like Android, iOS, Fire TV, and Android TV. And we had to do it in less than half than we usually do it, And it was a great team effort, and we managed to do it. And we didn't have any major issues from production, like even a month after that product was released. So again, we can do this, and we showed it that we can do a great success here. But the important part of this success and all of this knowledge is communities, as Andres also mentioned. So from the community point of view, I want to let Alexandru Gherghine to give you a little bit of glimpse on what we did. Alex?
Hey guys. So due to COVID-19, we had to move our offline meetings to various online environments. But what we tried to do, and I hope we're successful, is that we continue to promote a sense of community where communication is kept open and the community is always in touch. So our week is usually started with some catching up over coffee, where everyone has the chance to vent, but we also learn from everyone's experiences this past week. We then, later on in the week, we have a local studio full-on technical session for an hour for a couple of hours, where we explore some new technology, library, or we even have a live coding session. We do this because these discussions usually build up to tech talks that we hold for the entire community that spans multiple studios. And that's the place where we have the chance to distribute what we've learned and help the entire community. Then the leadership also makes sure to frequently talk with everyone in one-on-one sessions and actually lets everyone know what we're up to in the quarterly all hands. But what I consider to be our greatest success is we are keeping colleagues involved through a lot of tech talks, R&D initiatives, community projects, brain teasers, code challenges, and even the occasional debate. And we actually take pride in our own digital playground where we get to try all our new toys and frameworks and then we actually make sure that all our clients benefit from this playground. Back to you, Marian.
Yeah. So going very fast over this, another part important outside the work-related stuff, it's personal fit, right? We need our people, we need everyone to move in this situation. It's easy to stay in the chair all day. And in order to do this, we have people like Horatiu here who are doing like weekly training session for everyone to see. Another item that we're doing here is we are doing different fitness challenges, right? Hey, let's do 150K steps a day, things like that to engage the people. Yeah? But we don't try to work out only the body, we try to work out also the mind. And Alex, can you give us a little bit more details here?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned before, I'm a very social person, so moving from home and not seeing my colleagues was an issue for me. The day we received the email asking feedback about work from home, I was like replying that I'm climbing on the walls. Then the community part helped me by involving me personally in some projects, like I was member in a debate around the cross-platform frameworks versus native frameworks, where I had to support a new thing for me as a native development in front of a jury, where we also had some technical questions that our leads can use when hiring new people. We had algorithms challenge and so on. Every day interactions were moved online, so you didn't feel, or I personally didn't feel like I'm missing something from my day-to-day life at the office. So that, I think that's the best part for me, at least. If now I need to send another feedback regarding work from home, I would say that it's great. So that's it from me, Marian. You can continue.
Yeah, I think this is it from us, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and it's time for the Q&A session.
Yes, absolutely. And we do have a question in from the crowd that's around Game of Pods, which is so intriguing and cool. And the idea of what we need to do in order to keep teams engaged is critical. the question, and I might have missed it as well, is this something that any company, how do you get involved? How do you get a more thorough demo of this product and get engaged and get involved?
So yeah, definitely. We have an engagement platform for this. We can send you a few links to get, you can get a demo scheduled. And then as we work together, I mean, we can, you can use it. We have an open beta. It's a permanent beta. We've been running for like 3 months. The delivery world is ready to go in open beta. So, you know, if you like the demo, then we take next steps. But yeah, there is a platform to follow up on this.
That's great.
We'll share that after it.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to include those links in the follow-up. Another question coming out from the crowd. What other types of software have you been developing that you're seeing media companies develop in this space? And obviously they're leveraging Cognizant as who Cognizant is and who you all touch, and obviously Softvision as well. Are you seeing other types of software investments in the media space similar to these, or can you relate to that?
So there's a lot of OTT related, as you can imagine, right? So just it's not just about what you see, but what's underneath. You know, a lot of data lakes, a lot of AI, machine learning around the data, discovery patterns, you know, consumer profiling. Those are all projects that run across, and those are different products really that give the operators more intelligence and insights on, you know, what's the consumer base is about. So there's a lot of projects around, you know, data. Also what we see is about a lot of streaming actualization of technology. There's a whole bunch of legacy tech that needs to be brought up to date. And that requires, you know, better communication protocols, sometimes, you know, taking out or stripping out some technologies that's deprecated. So there's a lot of application modernization going on in the kind of back office underneath tech underneath to support all these new platforms. That's where most of the work is. There's a lot of technical debt also in media companies. So a lot of the work also is to, you know, really get them up to a level in which they can transition to have a product roadmap, not just be so task specific with their teams, but really, you know, transform their organizations into a product oriented organization so that then, you know, they can really put always a budget and an outcome focus and an ROI to each project and basically push them through the sign-off process. In many cases, these kind of IT or technology departments or companies, especially the media, the entertainment companies depends, right? So the gaming companies are always ahead in terms of software, but the media companies are pretty behind, at least how we see it. And sometimes it's tough to get these innovations through because they normally tend to buy off the shelf and adapt. So that's where we are seeing a lot of investments as well as in their own team, right? Actualization of their own team, hiring the best talent and building technology accordingly.
Yeah, there's certainly some catch up to do. Next question in from the crowd, relating to the communities part, and obviously, you know, Mesa is a big community advocate, right? That's been our flag since the early days, right? Saying, you know, these are your people. But question is can you tell us more about where these people are located? I mean, is this tied to a particular office or is this global? Well, yeah, that was
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have a network of studios, and we have studios where we call them, we blend the craft. They're physical and virtual. They're obviously in a market, yeah, it's really global. We have offices in the U.S., of course, Canada, in Vancouver. In the U.S., we're in New York, Dallas, Florida. We have West Palm Beach, Miami. We have an office in also Argentina and Buenos Aires, Mexico. That's Americas. Also, we have offices in all the guys here are all. Did you noted the accent? I'm Argentinian, and so you must have discovered some sort of accent. But these guys are Romanian, so we have a big team in several cities in Eastern Europe, in Romania particularly. Cluj and Bucharest and Baia Mare and Timișoara, Iași, and I'm using one always. the guys will help me out. And also India, right? Bangalore is our main location. So truly the teams are globally distributed, but the communities blend them together. So that community leadership makes sure that what good looks like for communities is standard across the different teams.
Excellent. And I know we only have time for probably a couple more questions, but one of them has to do with the challenge.
I can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear a guy.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me
now? Yeah.
Okay. The question is more about your general approach, and this is a new technology. How how long have you been developing this, and B, what were some of the challenges in terms of getting this product launched? Do you feel like you executed this as best you could, or maybe did you miss a beat? I mean, obviously also the last 4 months have been intense, so to speak, from a challenge perspective, and then putting a product out in the marketplace that it particularly addresses the market condition, the pandemic condition. I'm just curious how you felt you've done, and how long has this been in development of software?
So we've been developing, and basically it's a combination of factors, because virtual pods really is more of an approach, as you said, and Game on Pods is support software for the approach. We've been developing this for about 2 years, and it's been in open beta, so it's technically has not been released to the market yet. It's open beta. There's a huge degree of adoption with our clients because it helps, really. But we're going to be ready to launch, big market launch in January, February next year. It's a sneak peek that you're getting of what this is going to be about. But the adoption right now because obviously we have running businesses, and our main we are a service company really that creates or helps companies develop or engineer their products, their digital products. So we are using the product Game of Pods with them already in a subset, and we're getting tremendous feedback and insight from them, because it's a different tool. It's not like a typical agile tool where you just measure different things and that's it. This is a kind of a growth-minded, there are no barriers of entry, where you're continuously improving across the sprints in your cycle. So it's got a lot of, not only our clients, but also we're getting a lot of attention from analyst companies that we're working with as well.
Wonderful. And I think also, by highlighting that it's still an open beta and inviting people to come and participate, I think that's a good thing. And thank you, by the way. We'll consider that a Mesa member. All right, we have time. We have time for one more question. And so many out in the marketplace are figuring out, okay, what am I doing? What are my next steps? What's the market doing? This has to do with upskilling. And I'm curious, how are your managers helping employees? That was the question, to continue their education or focus on that upskilling. And are you tracking progress within your tool?
Yeah. So within communities, the community leadership has something that we call the community playbook, and that has sort of 3 main chapters. One is the social agenda, which is what the guys have explained, right? All the stuff that is done to make sure that people are engaged, especially when they're remote. The second one is the training path, and that is, they put together the curriculum. Sometimes we use learning platforms to help us, but the content and the curriculum is really put together by the leadership. And the third is they have a KPI framework that they manage, and they have metrics and goals such as retention. We are a service company, so they definitely have utilization. They have an R&D metric as well. It's how much ROI they're providing, so how much product they're releasing from the community, how much innovation is produced, and they have a thought leadership as well. Articles written, new approaches. So there's always time in the community. We allocate the time between the client project and what the community is supposed to do, so that the community is constantly evolving, right?
Well, I'm doing some work in HITS, right, which we've rebranded the Innovation and Transformation Society rather than Information Technology. But this is something also I think that's right up the alley for our Agile Career Development Group. But this has been super informative. We're out of time. I knew the hour would go by quickly. But thank you so much, Andres, for coming and demonstrating your product, and also for bringing your team together. I think it's been very informative, and I look forward to working with Virtual Pods and working with you in the future. I think this is great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the attention, and yeah, definitely happy to help. We'll follow up with, whoever's interested, we'll definitely help out.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone attending out there around the world. Appreciate your spending an hour with us learning about this product, and we'll see you on the next Mesa webinar. Thanks so much, Andres. Have a great one.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you.